The glaring incandescent light beat down on the thin medical report. The old doctor's hands trembled violently as he clutched the papers, cold sweat dripping from his wrinkled forehead onto the desk. "Mr. Christian, you're pregnant." Crash. The heavy stainless steel chair was kicked away by a long leg, slamming against the wall with a deafening bang. Christian slammed both hands onto the desk, the corners of his eyes flushed with a furious red from sheer absurdity and shock. Bullshit. I'm a top-tier alpha. How the hell could I be pregnant? The old doctor swallowed hard, his voice shaking like a leaf. Most likely, the father is a top-tier Enigma. That level of genetics carries an inescapable domination. During an intense rut, his irresistible magnetism overwhelmingly triggered your recessive reproductive cavity. In other words, you've been completely marked. Christian's vision went dark. His long fingers dug fiercely into the desk, veins bulging on the back of his hands. The only Enigma in the entire city. Who else could it be but Abelard, that mad dog rival wearing human skin? The thing Christian was most proud of in his life was his top-tier alpha genetics. His pheromone was a fiercely dominating, high-proof vodka that could burn away a person's reason in an instant. Anyone in their circle had to bow respectfully when they saw him. But right now, sitting in the andrology clinic, his knuckles turned white as he gripped the ultrasound report. The black and white text stung his retinas. Gestation, 6 weeks. Fatal heartbeat, visible. Visible, my ass. "Mr. Christian, please calm down." The old doctor stammered, pouring him a glass of water. "I can't calm down." Christian gritted his teeth, violently crumpling the ultrasound report into a tight ball in his palm. He stormed out, slamming the door behind him, and leaned his tall frame against the cold hallway wall, tilting his head back in despair. If it were anyone else's kid, fine, but it just had to be from his most hated rival. 6 weeks ago at the welcome banquet, amidst the neon lights and flowing drinks, Christian had simply ordered someone to spike Abelard's drink, planning to film his rival making a fool of himself and ruin his reputation. Who would have thought that once the heavy door of the penthouse suite locked, the prey would become the hunter? The cigar aroma of a top-tier Enigma crashed down like an avalanche. That fiercely dominant scent instantly froze the air, ruthlessly tearing through his vodka defenses. Like invisible barbed vines, it tightly coiled around his airways, exerting a domination so intense that his very lungs burned. Christian's 6'2" frame was pinned against the door, his prideful vodka pheromone utterly crushed. That night, every inch of his skin yielded to the inescapable magnetism, trembling with instinctual surrender. Early the next morning, dragging his exhausted body, Christian left a note with trembling fingers. "Your skills are trash. Ill, just pretend a dog bit me." Then, he limped away in a frantic escape. Looking back now, he wasn't bitten by a dog. He was inescapably claimed by a vicious dragon. The underground parking garage was dimly lit. Christian pulled up his black mask and pulled down his sunglasses, sneaking toward his sports car like a shady fugitive. The exact second his hand brushed the door handle, the tinted window of the black Rolls-Royce next to him smoothly rolled down. "Is Mr. Christian feeling ill?" Christian froze, blood rushing straight to his head. He turned his head stiffly. Abelard was sitting in the back seat with his long legs crossed, wearing an immaculately tailored charcoal bespoke suit. The dim overhead garage lights cast a cold, sophisticated gleam off the rims of his gold wire glasses. A complete wolf in sheep's clothing. Christian instinctively clamped his hand over the pocket holding the ultrasound, his jawline tighter than a bowstring. "None of your damn business." Abelard's lips curled into a wicked, mocking smirk. "Visiting the andrology clinic? Don't tell me Mr. Christian is impotent." Fury instantly scorched the corners of Christian's eyes red. Like a panther whose tail had been stepped on, he bristled and roared, "You're the one who's impotent. I can go 8 times a night." "Is that so?" Abelard leaned back against the leather seat with a half-smile. He slowly raised a long finger, casually flipping Christian off. That distinct, bony finger pierced right into his line of sight. Christian's ears burned entirely red, as if scorched by fire. Humiliated and furious, he growled, "What the fuck is that supposed to mean?" Abelard raised an eyebrow slightly, a hint of amusement flashing behind his lenses. "Why so worked up? It's just a friendly greeting. It's not like it hasn't happened before." Christian ground his molars together until they squeaked, his clenched knuckles turning white, but he didn't dare lunge forward to throw punches like he usually would. Just then, a very faint but intensely dominating cool scent of cigar seeped out from the car. Abelard leaned forward slightly. The scent silently slithered through the air, coiling around Christian's ankles like cold snake scales gliding over his skin, causing the scabbed gland at the back of his neck to instinctively ripple with a tingling shiver. Abelard spoke leisurely, his voice so deep it felt like it was pressed right against Christian's ear, so nervous. "Don't tell me you were the one who drugged me that day and slept with me while I was in my rut." Boom. Christian's mind exploded. The spicy tang of his vodka pheromone scattered slightly out of sheer panic. He stumbled back a step and yelled at the top of his lungs, bluffing hard, "Bull fucking shit. I'm a purebred alpha. Who has the damn time to sleep with you? I left early for another party that day. Don't try to pin your messy hookups on me." Before his voice even faded, he aggressively yanked his car door open, practically scrambling into the driver's seat. He slammed the gas pedal to the floor. The sports car's engine let out a tearing roar as he frantically fled the garage, terrified that a second later he'd be entirely swallowed up by that bone-chilling cigar scent. The heavy security door shut with a muffled thud. Christian loosened his tie, tossing it along with his tailored suit jacket onto the leather sofa. The living room lights were off. Moonlight crept in through the floor-to-ceiling windows, highlighting the massive soaked sweat stain on the back of his shirt. He collapsed defeatedly deep into the sofa, his two long fingers pinching the crumpled ultrasound report so hard his knuckles turned white. Fetal heartbeat visible. The thought of a little monster carrying his rival's genetics entrenched in his body, eating and drinking from him like a parasite, and forcing him to face that hypocritical scum Abelard again, made Christian's stomach churn. Frustrated, he yanked open a drawer and pulled out a pack of his favorite strong cigarettes. Just as he pressed one to his lips, he froze. Ugh, the intense tobacco smell didn't bring him the usual kick. Instead, it scraped harshly against his nasal cavity like rough sandpaper, carrying a nauseating heaviness that forced his stomach into violent spasms. Fuck. He roughly threw the lighter onto the glass coffee table with a sharp clack. Buzz, buzz. His phone screen abruptly lit up in the dark, casting a ghostly blue glow over Christian's volatile expression. "Secretary, Mr. Christian, the security footage has been completely wiped. Abelard hired top-tier hackers to force a recovery, but rest assured, he won't find a thing. Also," Abelard announced, "Hez searching the whole city for the Omega from that night, promising immediate marriage if they step forward." Omega? Christian stared at the screen, his Adam's apple bobbing as he let out a highly sarcastic sneer. This idiot didn't even realize whether he was pinning down an alpha or an omega. He tossed the phone aside and ripped off his collar. "Keep searching, Abelard. You could turn the Earth upside down, and you still wouldn't dig up an omega that doesn't even exist." Night fell. Without the suppression of the Enigma's chilling presence, the vodka pheromones inside the top-tier alpha flared up like raging flames, furiously attacking the foreign gestational sac. Cold sweat completely soaked his leather pillows. Christian dialed the old doctor with shaking hands, his back teeth grinding together. "I don't care how much it costs. Get rid of it right now." Dead silence hung on the other end for 2 seconds before the doctor's voice trembled like a leaf. "Mr. Christian, a forced procedure would instantly destroy your alpha glands. You'd lose half your life in the process. Your current rejection reaction can only be soothed by the father's Enigma pheromones. Piss off. Ask that mad dog for help. Dream on." He would rather chew his own bones and swallow them than ever bow his head. The call ended. Stomach acid corroded his insides like boiling magma, and that tiny thing, not even the size of a bean sprout, was already wreaking havoc on its host. Christian arched his back, clutching his lower abdomen tightly, staring at the dark ceiling with eyes burning red from agony and rage. Why the hell was he suffering in bed while the culprit was out there pretending to be deeply in love looking for a wife? A surge of irrational anger rushed straight to his head. He snatched his phone, his fingertips hammering the screen thunderously as he unhesitatingly dragged the contact mad dog out of his blocked list. "Screw you, Abelard. You despicable, heartless son of a bitch. Your whole family is an enigma. Go breed yourselves. Your skills are total dog shit. You scared people away and you still want to find a wife? In your wildest dreams." The messages fired off like a machine gun. The screen's pale light reflected Christian's gritted teeth, yet inexplicably satisfied expression. At the top, "The other party is typing," jumped for a full minute. Finally, a slow question mark appeared on the screen. Looking at that glaring question mark, the pent-up frustration in Christian's chest from the past month miraculously cleared. A wicked arc formed at the corner of his mouth as his fingers moved in a blur, block, delete, all in one breath. Perfect. Shoving the phone under his pillow, he closed his eyes, preparing to tough out this damn rejection reaction to the bitter end. However, reality mercilessly slapped the top-tier alpha in the face. At 3 a.m., Christian woke up in sheer agony. Even though the lump of flesh hadn't even taken shape, he could almost feel it rhythmically kicking in his abdomen, exuding an infuriating, Abelard-esque arrogance. "Fuck. Are you done yet?" He cursed weakly into the air, cold sweat dripping from his high nose bridge onto the covers, his breathing as heavy as a broken bellows. This was primal warfare. His formidable alpha instincts were frantically screaming to kill this intruder, while that dominating Enigma seed, fighting to survive, was desperately pulling at his nerves, greedily demanding the soothing comfort of the winter cigar. "You want pheromones? You want that mad dog's scent?" Christian threw off the blanket and sat up, his broad back heaving violently in the moonlight as his deep eyes fixed on the heavy night outside. Abelard was definitely sleeping like a log in some five-star hotel suite right now. Begging him was impossible. If he couldn't beg, head steal. He grabbed his car keys, a flash of desperate madness in his eyes. It was just stealing a worn shirt or a used handkerchief from that bastard, right? What's the big deal? The night was torn apart by the roar of the engine. A figure in an all-black tracksuit slipped through the 2:30 a.m. streets like a ghost, heading straight for the city center's most luxurious penthouse hotel. "Don't ask questions you shouldn't. Give me the keycard and get out." Under the lobby manager's jaw-dropped gaze, Christian snatched the master keycard and strode into the exclusive elevator, radiating terrifying hostility. As the floor numbers jumped rapidly, his abdomen cramped violently. The little bean sprout-sized flesh seemed to sense the approaching familiar scent and was thrashing around in excitement. "Behave!" Christian clamped his hands over his stomach, cold sweat dripping down his tense jawline. "Kick again and I'll dig you out right now." Beep! The heavy double doors slid open silently. Never in his wildest dreams did Christian think that he, an arrogant top-tier alpha, would be sneaking around for the first time in his life just to steal another man's unwashed shirt. From the bedroom, the sound of running water mixed with faint steam drifted out. Abelard was taking a shower. Perfect opportunity. Christian darted into the walk-in closet like an extremely irritable cheetah, his knobby fingers rapidly swiping through the hangers. Nothing but the lifeless scent of industrial laundry detergent. Gritting his teeth, he lifted the bottom of the laundry basket, held his breath, and yanked out that gray silk shirt. Boom! At that very moment, the incredibly dominating, intensely concentrated cigar aroma of a top-tier Enigma smashed into his lungs without warning. The scent carried a bone-chilling aggression, yet it was bizarrely boiling hot, like countless invisible thorny vines creeping down his nasal cavity and furiously twisting around his internal organs. Christian's tall frame trembled violently, his legs instantly turning to jelly as he dropped heavily to his knees beside the laundry basket with a thud. Stripped of any strength to struggle, he pressed the shirt fiercely against his face, greedily inhaling the cold fragrance into his wildly heaving chest in huge gulps. It felt too damn good. It was like a barren desert cracked for 10,000 years, suddenly being violently drenched by a torrential storm. The agonizing rejection pain in his abdomen miraculously subsided. The little lump of flesh settled down, even transmitting a teeth-gritting, fawning thrill of pleasure through his veins. Pathetic. Christian buried his face deep into the fabric, his powerless fingertips trembling as he muttered a muffled curse. He didn't know if he was cursing the cub or his own spineless body. Pure Enigma pheromones carried terrifyingly aggressive and hypnotic effects. Christian leaned against the edge of the wardrobe, his vision going black in waves as his brain was forcibly numbed by the cigar scent. Just a 5-minute nap. Once this dizziness passes, I'll leave. He stumbled onto the single bed covered in his rival's scent, his tall body curled up defenselessly, wrapping himself head to toe securely in the blanket, still clutching the wrinkled shirt tightly in his arms. In the final second before his consciousness plunged into darkness, he was still resentfully plotting. Tomorrow, he would absolutely go to the garage and slash all the tires on Abelard's Rolls-Royce. Who knows how much time passed? Christian, why are you here? Think of a new way to mess with me. A deep, languid voice dropped from above, carrying the warm moisture of a fresh shower. Christian frowned in irritation, his long legs kicking twice under the covers in vindictive retaliation. Following his instincts, he hugged the cigar-scented clothes tighter, buried his nose in, took a deep breath, and mumbled incoherently, "Shut up. Let me sleep." He impatiently waved his arm, trying to swat away the annoying fly disturbing his dreams. But the next second, his wrist was locked mid-air by a large, knobby hand radiating burning heat. "Who said you could sleep here?" The man's voice pressed closely against his eardrums, and the dominating cigar scent instantly enveloped all his senses. Christian struggled to lift his heavy eyelids, his vision blurred, barely catching the outline of a dark gray bathrobe and the dim shimmer behind gold wire glasses. Then, the intense pheromones shattered his last sliver of clarity. His head tilted, and he completely passed out. In the haze before blacking out, a very light, deep chuckle brushed against his ear. Heh, drunk on pheromones and you don't even realize it. The slightly cool fingertips slowly caressed the flushed corners of Christian's feverish eyes, the tone laced with an extremely wicked amusement. "Look at you. We broke up, yet here you are sneaking into your ex's bed in the middle of the night, holding my used clothes and sniffing for your life. What's the meaning of this?" The fingertips slid down his burning cheek, unapologetically pinching his vulnerable weak point, roughly rubbing the prominent, bite-scarred gland on the back of his neck, sending a bone-deep shiver through him. "Forget it. I'm the only one who can tolerate you like this." Tisk didn't even apply ointment. "In the end, I still have to do it." Blinding sunlight slashed through the gap in the curtains into the dim bedroom. Christian slept like he was blessed by the gods. Last night's domineering, fierce winter cigar scent had melted into sun-warmed snow, wrapping around him with a thick, reassuring sense of security. No nausea, no dry heaves, even the killer abdominal cramps had vanished without a trace. Except, this mattress felt a bit hard, and it was rising and falling rhythmically with his breathing. Wait. Christian's eyes snapped open, his vision suddenly focusing against the light. A muscular, smooth forearm was strongly draped over his waist, and a large, knobby hand rested incredibly naturally, full of possessiveness, flat against his lower abdomen. This was a fucking man's arm, and in a textbook big spoon position. Every hair on his body stood on end like needles, cold sweat instantly covering his back. He stiffly shifted his gaze, looking down at his right hand. He was still tightly clutching the gray shirt he had dug out of the laundry basket last night. However, bathed in the bright morning light, the fabric's shape was undeniable. Minimal material, structured cut, and that highly elastic waistband. No matter how you looked at it, it was a pair of extremely fitted men's underwear. He, an arrogant top-tier alpha, had sneaked into his rival's room at midnight, crawled into his bed, and even clutched his underwear while sniffing it all night. This was even more devastating than if that mad dog had actually found his imaginary Omega last night. Fuck! A voice-cracking roar shattered the peace of the presidential suite. Like a cat stepping on a high-voltage wire, Christian launched off the massive bed, tumbling onto the carpet. But the gray-tailored underwear stuck to him like a leech, hooked onto his thumb, swinging humiliatingly in the air twice. The person in bed was completely woken up by the commotion. Against the dark gray leather headboard, Abelard slowly sat up, his robe lazily half open, exposing a large expanse of firm chest. He lowered his eyes, his overwhelmingly dominant gaze locking flawlessly onto the scrap of fabric hanging from Christian's hand. "Morning, Mr. Christian." The man's voice carried the raspy satisfaction of someone who just woke up. "How did you sleep? Were my pheromones effective? What the fuck did you do to me?" Christian furiously shook off his hand, glaring viciously with eyes red from shame and anger. "Why am I in your bed? Playing the victim, are we, Mr. Christian?" Abelard methodically pulled his robe together, his long fingers playing with the belt knot. "Someone was very eager last night. Not only did you climb under my covers on your own, you also held onto my underwear for dear life, refusing to let me pull it away." He lifted his chin slightly, his deep gaze seemingly barbed. "That's quite a unique hobby." The blood-red color of humiliation rushed from the base of his neck straight to the tips of his ears. With a flick of his finger, Christian violently dunked the hot potato straight into the trash can 2 meters away. Who was eager? Don't flatter yourself. I drank too much last night and went to the wrong room. I'd have to be blind to want this dump of yours. Wrong room. Abelard strode forward on his long legs, standing intensely close to the bed, causing the cigar scent in the air to drop several degrees. How convenient, coming straight from the underground garage to the top floor exclusive elevator, and flawlessly walking into the wrong room right into mine. Christian, do you have superpowers, or do you think I'm an idiot? Christian's back teeth ground together. Shit. Last night he was so focused on making the manager open the door, he forgot the top floor security logs would track everything. Right in this deadlocked standoff, his lower abdomen suddenly twitched strangely. It carried an arrogant, cozy vibe of having absorbed enough Enigma pheromones and stretching after a full meal. Christian was so angry he could spit blood. It gets to feel good while leaving him here to take the blame. I have shares in this hotel too. I can go into whatever room I want. He forcibly suppressed the strange feeling in his stomach, stubbornly puffing up his chest to glare back. Ever heard of an inspection? I was doing an undercover checkup and conveniently crashed for a nap. What? Are you going to charge me for the room? The air fell dead silent. Abelard looked down at him from above, the teasing fading from his eyes, his unfathomable gaze locked on like a hawk targeting its prey. After a long pause, he parted his thin lips and asked a completely unrelated question. Christian, why did you break up with me back then? The frustration over a pair of underwear vanished in an instant, as if a bucket of liquid nitrogen filled with ice blades had been poured over his head. All disguises and heat instantly froze. Did Mr. Abelard leave his brain at customs while abroad these past few years? Christian abruptly looked away, bending down to snatch up his black jacket from the floor, desperately trying to hide his trembling fingertips. Why bring up ancient history out of nowhere? Makes you seem like you can't let go. Just curious. The man's voice was low, carrying an inescapable penetration. You pursued me so passionately back then, reading a disciplinary apology as a love letter over the school broadcast. But after dating for barely 3 months, you sent a breakup text, ran off to the neighboring city for a 3-month retreat, avoiding me completely. And when you came back, you opposed me at every turn, practically forcing me to move abroad. Abelard took a step forward, his tall frame entirely blocking the sunlight, his aggressively domineering cigar scent casting over him like a giant net. And now, you show up in my bed in the middle of the night. Christian, you owe me a convincing reason. Not just I walked into the wrong room as an excuse. The familiar oppression made Christian's breath catch, his chest churning. Why did they break up? Because it was fucking absurd. He, a self-proclaimed top-tier alpha destined to crush all others, got his secondary presentation medical report only to find weak development of a reproductive cavity, diagnosed as an incredibly rare high susceptibility alpha. The look the old doctor gave him back then was like looking at the 8th wonder of the medical world. And right at that fatal juncture, Abelard, the mad dog, presented as an overwhelmingly top-tier enigma. How could he, Christian, a proud and arrogant alpha, become an appendage to another enigma, constantly at risk of being suppressed or even inescapably marked by high-level pheromones? Constantly guarding against being manhandled in bed by this bastard. A joke. Did he not care about his pride? So he cut ties swiftly, blocked and deleted everything, ran away, threw himself into a devil's training camp to turn himself to steel, forcefully weathering the torture of his ruts to cement his invincibility as an iron-blooded alpha. Now asking him to bow his head and admit it? Dream on. Who knew fate had other plans? 6 weeks ago, that damned rut completely ground his invincibility to dust. Christian abruptly straightened up, tossing the black jacket over his broad shoulder, suppressing his racing pulse, and forced a highly wicked sneer. No need to find boring excuses to flatter yourself. Does a breakup need a reason? I got bored. 3 months and you never gave me a thrill. If I didn't dump you, was I supposed to keep you around for the holidays? He deliberately avoided the overpowering cigar scent, striding out the door. As for last night, I was inspecting. I haven't sunk so low as to have any inappropriate desires for an ex I dumped. The Maybach's engine let out a furious roar, speeding out of the underground garage. Christian gripped the steering wheel tight with one hand, veins bulging. How did that soft dough ball from back then mutate into a top-tier enigma capable of crushing everything? If he knew there was a world-destroying nuke hidden inside, he wouldn't have provoked him even if beaten to death. He collapsed exhausted into the leather seat. Even though he had lost immense face last night, the domineering pheromones really did completely pacify the little monster in his belly. But this wasn't a long-term plan. He couldn't just go raid his rival's trash bin for underwear every night, right? As he pushed open his front door with a dark expression, the butler greeted him, holding a massive black box half a person tall. "Mr. Christian, anonymous same-city delivery. They only left your private number." Normally, he wouldn't even bat an eye at this kind of junk, but the moment his gaze hit the black cardboard box, the unformed flesh in his abdomen suddenly shuddered pathetically, as if sensing an incredibly alluring signal. Christian's brow twitched sharply. He snatched the letter opener. "Go do your work. I'll open it myself." The sharp blade cleanly sliced through the sealing tape. The moment the flaps opened, boom, an intensely dominating, chilling cigar aroma swept through the entire living room like a raging hurricane. The scent was coarse, scorching, carrying the arrogance of an absolute apex predator, violently pushing straight down his airways and instantly tightening his nerves. Christian's legs gave out uncontrollably. He had to brace both hands tightly against the edge of the box to stop himself from kneeling. A whole box full. Shirts, suits, casual wear, all of it worn and unwashed. Aside from that lunatic Abelard, who could be twisted enough to pack up an entire box of his own dirty laundry and mail it to an ex. Right on top of a wrinkled white shirt, a sticky note was plastered clearly. The handwriting was sharp and wild, almost slicing through the paper. "I failed to host Mr. Christian properly during his visit. Seeing your fond attachment to my clothes, consider this a special gift. Psychopath. Pervert. Shameless bastard." Christian's eyes turned red with fury as he roared at the air. "Take this pile of garbage, box and all, and dump it at the community trash station immediately. Even one extra second of looking at it makes me sick." No sooner had the words left his mouth than his pacified stomach instantly churned. The little brat kicked him hard in utter dissatisfaction. Fuck. Christian doubled over, pressing his hands hard against his abdomen, trying to suppress the weak instinct greedy for the Enigma's scent. Bought off by a few ragged clothes? You've completely disgraced my face as a top-tier alpha. Yet, he tragically realized his desperately craving body simply couldn't leave this box of fabric soaked in intense male hormones. The butler rushed over upon hearing the noise, his hand just brushing the edge of the box. "Wait." Christian raised his voice, shielding the box. "Who told you to throw it away?" Meeting the butler's stunned gaze, he lied through his teeth without blushing. "These are bespoke pieces worth hundreds of thousands. Throwing them away is just giving the scavengers a freebie. Wash and iron them out. Well, sell them second-hand. Use the money to buy premium dog food for strays. Consider it building good karma for that mad dog Abelard." As he spoke, moving like a wild beast protecting its food, he swiftly folded the 4 flaps of the box tightly closed, ordering with feigned composure, "Before finding a buyer, move this box of junk into my bedroom walk-in closet. It'll pollute the air out here." The butler was silent for a full 3 seconds. "Are you sure? You want it in the bedroom?" Christian snapped like his tail was stepped on, glaring fiercely. "The bedroom has a top-tier air purifier. What do you know?" For the next 3 full days, the Maybach never left the garage. He had to admit, although Abelard was a complete bastard, the soothing effect of his unique pheromones was a medical miracle. Not only did the dry heaves vanish, Christian could even polish off 2 steaks in one sitting. But the price was incredibly humiliating. Every night, he had to line both sides of his pillows with that bastard's clothes like a nesting omega just to fall asleep. The deep, cold cigar scent wrapped around him 360 degrees. The intense sensation felt exactly like being forcefully caged in Abelard's embrace all night. Every time he woke up in the middle of the night, he mentally cursed all 18 generations of that mad dog's ancestors, then hopelessly, humiliatingly buried his hot cheek deep into the fabric, breathing heavily. However, emergency rations eventually run out. By the morning of the 4th day, the box was empty. On the last 2 undershirts pulled from the bottom, the fiercely aggressive scent had been completely squeezed dry by his comfort-starved body. As morning light hit the dining room, familiar violent churning instantly shattered the surface calm. Ugh, Christian forcefully shoved aside the fragrant soft-boiled eggs on the table, clutching the table edge with both hands, cold sweat once again covering his pale, sickened cheeks. Out of medication. He had to go out and get some fresh scent. The Maybach sped all the way to the company. In the private elevator, the secretary held her tablet, speaking rapidly. Mr. Christian, Mr. Abelard has expanded the search parameters to betas. Christian's eyelid twitched violently, a flash of obvious panic crossing his deep eyes. Expanded to betas? Did that mad dog finally realize the body he violently pinned down that night didn't possess an Omega soft anatomy? Before he could catch his breath, the secretary swallowed hard and dropped a second bombshell. Also, Hez waiting for you in your office right now. Fuck. Why didn't you say so earlier? Christian spun on his heel, kicking up a frantic gust of wind, ready to dive back into the elevator. The lump in his stomach wasn't pacified yet. Going in now was pure suicide. Yet, with his finger half an inch from the elevator door button, the heavy double doors behind him clicked open from the inside. Chris, let's talk. One sentence nailed Christian's escape attempt firmly in place. Chris, the truce code word set in a hospital room back when they were dating. As long as this name was called, even if the sky was falling, you had to retract your claws and listen to the other person finish. Christian turned around with a dark expression, striding into the office like a bristling but falsely calm cheetah, throwing himself heavily into the boss chair. Spit it out. In the air, a very faint but incredibly aggressive heavy cigar scent silently drifted over. Christian's lungs, parched all morning, instinctively erupted with a scalp-tingling shiver the moment they touched the aura, miraculously settling his violently throbbing stomach. But outwardly, his face was like frost, his jawline taut as a drawn bow. Abelard got straight to the point, the gaze behind his glasses piercing directly, carrying an inescapable oppression. Why did you break up with me back then? Tell me the real reason. Got bored doesn't fool me. Locked down by that intensely heavy gaze, Christian decided to just burn the bridge, letting out a cold sneer as he leaned heavily into the backrest, his chin raised arrogantly. Fine, you insist on the truth? Because you're an enigma. I am the strongest alpha, born to take absolute dominance. With you, constantly living in fear that your rut will trigger and you'll crush me in bed. That's a bad deal. I refuse. He expected these words to enrage the other man, but Abelard froze for a second, a highly hearty, deep laugh actually vibrating from his chest, softening the arrogant cigar scent by several degrees. That's it. Christian's eyes widened in disbelief, fury instantly turning the corners of his eyes red. That's not enough? What do you mean that's it? If you were afraid of being topped. Abelard strode to the desk, looking down at him from above, his voice low. Then why didn't you just top me? Is it really that big of a deal that you had to retreat to the next city for 3 months to build muscle? And break up with me over it? Top him? A loud buzz went off in Christian's brain, so furious he almost spat blood. I fucking wanted to. 6 weeks ago in the penthouse, I absolutely went with the intention of pinning you to the bed and dominating you. And the result? My 6'2", top-tier alpha body was flipped like a pancake by you until my bones fell apart, and now I'm carrying a debt-collecting parasite I can't get rid of. And now you show up pretending to be magnanimous, saying why didn't you top me? Total fucking bullshit. What? Don't believe me. I genuinely would let you top me. Abelard suddenly leaned down, pressing his hands heavily on the edge of the desk, his highly aggressive cigar scent instantly compressing the distance between them to its limits. That usually cultured and ascetic mouth actually ground out a curse word. You have no idea how fucking much I love you. Abelard rarely swore. It was thrilling. Absolutely thrilling. These words were like high-proof vodka poured directly down his throat, burning Christian's ears hot. Abelard loved Christian. Christian obviously knew that. He could even truly die for Christian, as long as Christian asked. But what proud, arrogant alpha would willingly be suppressed by an enigma? Before Christian could catch his breath, Abelard's next words completely blew the roof off. Christian, I know it was you that night. The man's voice was kept very low, carrying an extremely dangerous certainty. The thick cigar scent was like a sky-blotting net, securely locking every inch of Christian's breath, making even the air feel sticky and scorching. I can apologize to you, but if I hadn't been in a completely out of control rut, I definitely would have held back and laid face down to let you fuck me. Christian's pupils contracted violently, all the blood in his body rushing backwards. Like a powder keg whose fuse had been stomped on, he kicked his chair away and sprang up, pointing at Abelard's nose and roaring fiercely, his voice cracking from sheer panic and guilt. What kind of nonsense are you spouting? Who the fuck slept with you? You've gone crazy looking for that Omega. Between Abelard's long fingers, he leisurely held up a bright yellow sticky note. The arrogant handwriting on it was precisely the dog bite declaration Christian had left behind when he fled. Only you could write the words on this paper. Abelard pressed closer step by step, the wicked light of a hunter closing his net flashing in his deep eyes. Furthermore, these past few days, someone not only sneaked into my room at midnight to steal my underwear, but also hoarded an entire box of my dirty laundry like a protective beast. Christian, tell me, taking my clothes for 3 days, what exactly are you doing? Fuck. 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 This mad dog was waiting for him right here. That box of clothes was completely intentional. He had seen through him surviving on his pheromones all along. Can't I use it to wash my car? Christian's ears bled red, his jawline taut as he stubbornly refused to admit it. Who made the rule that your clothes can only be sniffed? Wash your car? Abelard let out an incredibly soft laugh. Using Enigma pheromones to wash a car, Mr. Christian's hobbies are indeed unique. He stopped a step away, his gaze instantly becoming incredibly heavy. Since the breakup back then was out of fear of being topped, then right now, I'm handing you my weak point. Click. The crisp sound of a metal belt buckle popping open was infinitely amplified in the office. Abelard unhesitatingly pulled out his belt, decisively turning around, leaning his upper body forward to rest steadily on the armrest of the leather sofa. He turned his head. His trousers were half loosened, his pale lower back and the fatal gland on the back of his neck fully exposed, completely unguarded in the air. The originally fiercely aggressive cigar scent suddenly retracted all its violent thorns, morphing into a thick, scorching yet terrifyingly magnetic invisible net that obediently and wildly coiled around Christian's ankles. I said, I really can do it. Abelard looked at him steadily, his tone maddeningly serious. As long as you don't break up with me, letting you take me from behind is no big deal. This world has gone completely mad. Christian stared fiercely at that blindingly pale waist, the string called reason in his brain stretching to the point of a dying snap. That was a top-tier Enigma, and he was actually bending over in front of him in a stance of extreme submission. The conquering desire of a top-tier alpha instantly turned to high-proof vodka, spiking wildly in his blood. His Adam's apple bobbed violently, swallowing a dry mouthful of saliva, and his dress shoes stepped forward uncontrollably half a pace at this critical razor's edge moment. The little lump of flesh in his belly, which had been playing dead, instantly felt the zero distance, high concentration, unguarded soothing pheromones from its biological father. It got as excited as if it were on drugs, twitching violently and arrogantly in his abdomen. That tingling shock rushed straight to his brain, and Christian jolted, instantly waking up. Abelard, stop fucking around. A mix of humiliation and terror, Christian ground his white teeth, raising his long leg to violently kick Abelard right in the ass. I have a baby in my belly. If you keep doing this, I'm actually going to lose my mind. Catching a kick off guard, Abelard stumbled forward half a step. He completely ignored his half-dropped trousers, whipping around, his usually calculated face entirely blank. What? Did you say? He stared dead at Christian's flat lower abdomen, his gold wire glasses nearly dropping in shock. What do you mean, what? Christian completely broke down, pointing at his stomach and roaring, the corners of his eyes practically dripping blood. I said, your damned rut, combined with your cursed domineering pheromones, overwhelmingly triggered my recessive reproductive cavity. Go check a dictionary. This is fucking called early pregnancy. The air went dead silent for a second. The next instant, a dark gray blur lunged at him. Abelard's 2 iron arms clamped around Christian's waist like hydraulic pliers, burying his boiling hot cheek deeply into his neck, his broad shoulders shaking like a leaf. Be gentle. You're going to strangle me. Christian, mine. The voice revealed a teeth-gritting, maddened ecstasy. No shit. Who else but a mad dog like you could pull off something this wicked? Abelard suddenly lifted his head, his deep eyes shockingly bright, the corners actually flushed with irrepressible red. He roughly cupped Christian's face, his thin lips pressing down with the scorching taste of cigar, unarguably and fiercely biting onto that mouth that was still chattering away. Clack. The heavy mahogany office doors were pushed open without warning. Mr. Christian, this merger file needs your immediate signa. Time seemed to hit the pause button. The secretary holding the files froze in the half-open doorway. In her line of sight, her high and mighty top-tier alpha boss was being pressed against the sofa and passionately kissed by his rival, while the usually ascetic Mr. Abelard had his belt unbuckled and pants half down. The secretary gasped, her pupils quaking as she frantically threw her hands over her eyes. Sorry. I saw nothing. Please continue, Mr. Christian. Please continue, Mr. Abelard. Bang. The door was slammed shut in sheer terror. Abelard. Christian trembled with rage, mercilessly slapping that handsome face, roaring in absolute humiliation. I've lost all my fucking face because of you. Abelard, bearing the red mark on his face, licked his lips in satisfaction, smiling like a sophisticated scumbag. So you lost it. The worst that happens is I marry into your family with my assets. The next day, a bizarre excitement permeated the air of the entire building. Inside the CEO's office, Christian had a dark expression, staring deathly at the tablet his trembling secretary handed him. In the 100-person gossip group chat, he was uniquely excluded from. Messages were firing off like a waterfall, I swear. Mr. Abelard's belt was really unbuckled. Mr. Christian was being pinned to the sofa and kissed. Mind-blowing gossip. Our 62 strongest alpha is actually the bottom? I knew it. These two bosses are supposedly rivals, but they definitely have a thing going in private. All hail Mr. Abelard. Holy crap, the point is, Mr. Abelard was rubbing Mr. Christian's belly and laughing. I seriously suspect the boss is pregnant. Wow, 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 wow. The veins on the back of Christian's hand bulged, accompanied by a crisp crack as he literally squeezed a spiderweb fracture into the tablet's tempered glass. Christian's tall spine was straight as an arrow, his icy gaze nailing the secretary from above. The girl frantically grabbed a blue reflective folder, desperately blocking her flushed face, her voice trembling like a leaf in the wind. Mr. Christian, if I apply for a transfer to the Africa branch right now, will you approve it? Approved. Get out now. Christian impatiently took a long stride, shoving open the heavy mahogany doors. Click, the lock had just dropped. A knobby, large hand suddenly shot out from an angle, clamping around his wrist like iron tongs. His world spun, and Christian was roughly pulled into an embrace reeking of heavy cigar smoke. What? Is the Africa branch short-staffed? Abelard's firm jaw rested against Christian's forehead, his deep eyes filled with a highly punchable smirk. Christian's eyes widened in shock, struggling and roaring. Why the hell are you here, you bastard? Just had a truckload of Chilean cherries airlifted. Abelard not only didn't let go, but punishingly squeezed the back of his neck. Don't pregnant husbands like sour things? Eat my ass. Christian elbowed him away fiercely, spinning around to loudly lock the office door behind him. He turned back, lowering his voice, his ears burning red from guilt as he gritted out a low growl. Don't fucking come here so often. We are rivals publicly, do you understand? Running to my office every day, what does that look like? Abelard lowered his eyelashes incredibly innocently, his tall frame visibly slumping in grievance, yet his tone carried a mad dog's possessiveness. Hubby, we already have a child together. Don't I get a title? Get lost. 7 months later. Time seemed to hit fast forward. The flat lower abdomen was now high and swollen, as if a heavy watermelon had been forcefully stuffed under his clothes. His lumbar spine ached as if it were snapping, and just taking a few steps made his chest heave like a broken bellows. Nauseating maternity shakes, folic acid pills he was sick of taking, and every night being forced onto the sofa by that mad dog Abelard under the guise of rubbing the belly to feel the baby kick. Tonight was no exception. In the bedroom, the warm, intimate bedside lamp shone over the messy bedding. Christian leaned lazily against the leather headboard, his gray silk pajamas roughly pulled up to his chest, exposing that round, smoothly glowing belly. Abelard's large palm, rested flawlessly against it. Thump! The little monster inside gave its Enigma father a lot of face, forcefully pushing a small lump out against the skin. It moved. Abelard looked up quickly, his eyes behind the gold wire glasses shining brightly, filled with a triumphant zeal. Christian rolled his eyes, annoyed, slapping the large hand away with a smack. Kicks every day. Big deal. Not only did the hand not retreat, it carried a scorching heat as it dangerously slid an inch further down. Hubby, it's been 7 months. Abelard's voice turned husky, the intensely aggressive cigar scent turning into boiling magma, threading through the air into Christian's lungs. Let the baby's father come in and see how our child is doing, okay? Christian's mind blanked for a second. The next moment, humiliated and furious, he raised his long right leg, his bare foot mercilessly kicking Abelard's firm shoulder. Abelard, you fucking pervert. The man didn't dodge. That calloused large hand accurately grasped his slender ankle, the rough thumb pressing down heavily, in an incredibly sensual manner, against the sensitive inner ankle bone. A fatal strike. Electricity shot madly up from his ankle. The high-tier Enigma pheromones instantly turned into thick, pervasive vines, tightly suffocating the surrounding air. Combined with the extremely fragile and sensitive constitution of pregnancy, Christian only felt a mind-breaking numbness rush straight to his head, his entire leg turning to mush. We agreed. I'd top you. Christian gritted his back teeth, his elbows pressing against the soft mattress, veins bulging as he tried to prop his heavy body up. However, the weight of his belly severely threw off his balance, and after flailing twice, he still couldn't sit straight. Heh, a low chuckle. Abelard extended his long arms, easily scooping him belly and all into his embrace, his boiling hot chin resting intimately on Christian's shoulder, greedily inhaling the scent of his neck. You top. You're the boss. You're on top. You expect me to straddle you with a 7-month belly? Christian's eyes reddened with anger, his chest heaving violently. Are you trying to kill me? I'll support you. The man's hands were already slipping into forbidden territory with practiced ease. Furious enough to laugh, Christian burst into curses. But all his dirty words, crashing into that thick, scorching cigar scent, were crushed into broken, muffled moans squeezed through his teeth. The more he cursed, the less confidence he had, and the heavier the physiological tears gathered at the corners of his eyes. Ultimately, the top-tier alpha was forced to straddle him anyway. The scene was both absurd and comical, Abelard's 2 iron arms tightly locked around his sweaty lower back, while Christian's trembling hands barely braced themselves against the man's broad chest. And between them sat that heavily swollen, prominent pregnant belly. However, when Christian looked down, panting heavily, he unexpectedly met a pair of deep eyes. Without the gold wire glasses hiding them, the way Abelard looked up at him mirrored exactly the soft, completely besotted youth from 6 years ago. Christian. That intensely captivating, deep voice exploded in the quiet night. Christian turned his flushed face away, his breathing entirely chaotic. Shut up. Don't call my name. Hubby. This call carried immense longing. Christian's jaw tightened, holding onto the last crumbling trace of his top-tier alpha majesty, snorting coldly from above. What? Abelard's eyes reflected his sweat-drenched, messy yet undeniably sexy appearance, the corners of his mouth melting into a smile of ultimate tenderness. I'm so happy. Christian's heart unavoidably skipped a beat. He bit his lower lip, his fingertips digging deep into the man's chest as he let out a highly arrogant, soft scoff from his nose. Lucky you.
After finishing this story, the god-tier tug-of-war and hilarious dynamics between these two absolutely killed me. But amidst all the laughs, their deeply buried romance had me squealing and rolling around in bed. Christian is hands down the most dynamic and endearingly contradictory top-tier alpha I've ever seen. Hez incredibly proud on the outside, Hez a hot-headed badass who bows to no one and does whatever he wants, but deep down, Hez a massive tsundere who'd rather suffer in agony than lose face. Back in the day, just to protect his formidable alpha pride, he ruthlessly dumped his first love and ghosted him to go pump iron. Now, just to survive his intense physical rejection, he actually stooped to sneaking into his rival's room in the dead of night to steal his clothes. And then there's Abelard, always in a tailored suit and gold wire glasses. He looks like a perfect gentleman, but in reality, has a highly calculating, insanely possessive top-tier Enigma. He knows exactly how to play Christian like a fiddle. From strategically dropping off clothes soaked in his heavy cigar pheromone, to backing him into a corner step by step until he exposed his own secret right in the office, it was all flawlessly orchestrated. But what absolutely blew me away was his unreserved, almost desperately devoted love. Just to keep his hot-tempered ex-boyfriend around, he willingly bared his most vulnerable, fatal gland. That line, "I really can do it, as long as you don't break up with me," etched his profound devotion and beautiful madness right into his very bones. If you loved this story, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. See you guys next time.